This video has a spoiler about the end game if you side with the Institute. So if you don't want any spoilers whatsoever, you may want to skip this video for now. If you side with the Institute, at the very end of the game, you, the sole survivor, become its new director. And at your disposal are the director's quarters. These were the quarters previously used by Father himself. But as we learn in the game, he no longer needs them. And so they're ours. I completely decorated my director's quarters, and I want to show it off with you today. You can download my director's quarters and install it in your game using transfer settlements, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. So here's the second floor of my director's quarters, and as you see, it's very different from the one that Father leaves us with. I was able to do this using a mod called AS Institute Workstations by Dubot, which turns the director's quarters into a workshop player home like home plate. Actually, it turns the entire Institute, at least the concourse level, into an editable player home. This is the director's resources, which works as your workshop, and activating it, we can now build whatever we want. One of the things I wanted to do with my director's quarters is to make it as independent as possible, so that you can download this and put it in your own game without requiring a bunch of mods. It will require just a few, one of which is this AS Institute Workstations, which allows you to build inside the director's quarters. But let me show you what I've done. So, gone is the sick bed that Father was sleeping in over here, and here is your own player bed. You're going to notice a bunch of other stuff in here that you can't get in the settlement build menu, like this bed, for example, and these consoles on the wall. And I'll show you how I went ahead and did it. I used Place Everywhere, so let me give you a good example here. Let's go upstairs and I'll show you what I did. Place Everywhere is amazing, and it allowed me to do many things I otherwise wouldn't have been able to. So one of the unique options with Place Everywhere is you can press Insert to enable extra object selection. This allows you to select things that you normally wouldn't be able to manipulate using the workshop build tool. Then I can move things around if I want to, but I didn't want to harm the Institute in any way. I didn't want to change anything that was here. The Institute in this version, if you download it for your game, is exactly the same Institute you find in the vanilla game. The only changes I made are to the director's quarters. But let me show you something real quick. What you can do with Place Everywhere is press backspace, and it duplicates an item. Then we press 5 to orient it, and now I've got my own little version of this interesting console or doodad that I can then bring into my director's quarters, place it wherever I want, and then resize it using the number pad, and then, decorate up a wall over here, right? I already did it, so I'm not going to do it again. So we'll just scrap that for now. In this way, I was able to grab this bed. This is the bed that came with the original quarters that we were gifted when we first joined the Institute, that small little room. I just made a duplicate of that bed, since all of the others are set to owned, and brought it up here. And now we can sleep on our own bed. Then I wanted some privacy, so I duplicated some of these privacy screens. The Institute is really interesting. The entire thing is modular. We find a lot of these privacy screens all over the place, and I just duplicated them and then brought them over to this wall to add a bit of privacy. That way, no one else out there in the Institute can peer on in while the director is changing his or her clothes. So this is the sleeping workstation. I've got a console on the wall here so that the director can set the alarm and monitor his or her sleep. I've got other consoles over here, and here's an interesting doodad. We find these little things all over the Institute. I copied one and then resized it and brought it on over. I like it a lot. Now, I'm hoping that a Gen 1 synth will come by so I can show it to you. But this console right there is an interactive hotspot for synths. So a synth will walk in here and pull out a blowtorch and start fiddling with it. So I didn't want to remove it, and I didn't want to put anything in front of it, because I really like that. Also, for some reason, I couldn't get Place Everywhere to let me access this panel to put back over it. So every now and then, a synth is going to walk in here and fiddle with that, and that's okay. This, I've seen these used in other rooms here in the Institute as furnaces or little heaters, and so they put these by the beds. But there wasn't any in the director's quarters, so I went and duplicated one and shrunk it down and put it down here. I figure the director's going to need some heat while he or she is sleeping. Over here is a selection of lockers. I wanted to maintain the look and feel of the Institute. You'll notice that I don't have a bunch of crazy furniture from Nuka World like the pack set or anything like that. What I did is I only used Institute stuff. So all of these chairs, for example, I couldn't put down using the work menu. I had to run around and find chairs I wanted to use, duplicate them, and drag them on in here. And that's because I think that, not only did Bethesda put a lot of thought and attention into the way that the Institute looked, but I figure, at least I'm role-playing with my character, that she really, this is her new home, and she wants to fit in, and she wants to be respected, and she doesn't want to come across as a wastelander, She wants to come across as the director of the Institute. And so she's making sure that her decorations are pretty much everything that we would already find in the Institute. So I use these lockers that we already find in the Institute. These are used in all of the other little rooms by some of the other members of the Institute. And I've got my stuff organized. This is stuff from mods and stuff that I've used in the past that I'm constantly cycling in and out as part of my gear. And then this is where I'm storing all of the legendary armor that's dropped. This is other non-legendary armor and clothing, and this is hats. So I've got it all organized over here. I had a lot of fun one day putting all of the paintings, and I'll show you the paintings. But when you walk around the Institute, you don't find cats, and you very infrequently find lighthouses and all, posters of comic books and all of that. You find these abstract paintings. This is all they use in the Institute, and I never use these in any of my settlements because I think, I don't think they really fit in a wasteland. I mean, are these going to look good? Well, maybe at Hangman's Alley, but Somerville Place in some sort of rickety shack? I don't know. If I was a normal wastelander, would I want to decorate my home with these? No. But they do work great in the Institute, but I wanted it to be a little different because normally when we get these paintings, we have one option. It's a big horizontal option, a little bit bigger than that, and they all come in the same size. So I used Place Everywhere to rotate them and change their sizes to take up wall space. And here's the most prominent example. I really blew that up to take up a lot of wall space over there, but I like how it turned out. And then over here, I turned it on its end. I like this one a lot. It's the only one that has pink in it. I'm not sure why, but for some reason I like that one a lot. Okay, so we've got a light here, and you'll notice that it does work. It's a bit unnecessary because one of the unique things about the Institute is it's lit with all of these track lights in the ceiling, these fluorescent track lights. But walking around the Institute and exploring some of the other homes for inspiration, I found that a lot of these white lamps were all over the place, but none of them worked. And of course, none of them worked in those homes because none of those homes have power. But I wanted them to work in the director's quarters, so I managed to find a way to wire this place with power. So I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but let me tell you what I did. So back in this room, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but this is a storage room. I created a fusion generator, and I shrunk it down, because the fusion generator from the workshop menu is huge, and it was just too big. So I shrunk it down, and you'll see that it's connected to a little conduit sticking up out of the ceiling. And that's because I took a lot of time and spent great care wiring this entire place with conduits. Let me show you a bit of the footage that I shot while I was doing this. I snapped the conduits together on the ground. I just made the entire network of conduits on the ground before I decorated the place and made sure that they were connected to electricity and that electricity flowed. And then what you can do is you can hold E on one of the conduits, and that selects everything that's connected to the item that you're targeting. Then I just pushed them up into the ceiling until they were hidden. That way we don't have wires, you don't see conduits, and there's ambient electricity throughout the entire director's quarters. So here we are back in my completed version, and you can see that there's nothing sticking up out of the floor, even though this is a top floor level. There's nothing sticking up, there's nothing sticking out of the ceiling, so it's hidden extremely well. And it's got power everywhere. I tested almost every square inch of this place. Yeah, here's another one, and every single light that we want to put down is functional. See, we can turn this on and off, and that's because of the ambient power. So there you go, it is powered. So if you download and install this into your game, and you get AS Institute workstations, you can go ahead and put more lights and decorate it up any way you want. All right, so where were we? Back over here. I already said that I got some of these consoles. There was a lack of monitoring equipment. One of the things I wanted to do in here, but I couldn't, is place a big bank of TVs or monitors on the wall with all of those pictures from the Watchers. But that workstation is inside an interior cell. It's in the SRB, the Synth Retention Bureau, and sadly this mod doesn't work from cell to cell. So I wasn't able to snag that, but I went and got a bunch of other consoles and flicking lights and blips and bloops and decorated that wall with it. And then over here we have the director's lonely eating station. And this is more of a role-playing thing from my character. As I talked in my video on my characters, because people were asking about my characters, and so I made a big video talking about them, my Institute character is, well, she's kind of sad and lonely. She misses her son, she misses her husband, she was extremely proud of her son, and she's devastated that he's gone. And she finds herself in this institute, being in charge of it, but she doesn't have a scientific background. She has a lawyer background, and then as a wasteland survivor background. She's never been a scientist. And so she's surrounded by all of these smart and brilliant people who intimidate her. And so she is a little bit ruthless. She, rules with a bit of an iron fist. She gives orders, and all of that comes out of her own personal insecurity. She's insecure being around all of the other people here in the Institute because she knows her own limitations. This is why she prefers to walk with X688, because in her mind, he's just a thing. He's not a person, and so she's not intimidated by her because she believes the Institute dogma that synths are not people. So she's not intimidated by him. He follows orders. That's why she spends time with him. But because of this mentality of hers, she's lonely and she doesn't make friends very well. She is this iconic person who's got a ruthless grip over the Institute, ruling from up high, and that is a very lonely perch. So this is her place to eat, for one. And she's got her food, her little food square, which you probably wouldn't need any silverware for that. Maybe it's a bar. How do you eat these? You just pick up pick it up like a power bar and gnaw on it? I don't know. But I gave her a plate with some silverware anyway, and then she's got some Institute water and a little flour and some placemats under there. I made it a nice little, eating place for one. You'll notice there's no kitchen, and that's of course because she's in the Institute. Well, all right, I'll go ahead and show you the Institute. One of the things I love about this director's quarters is I really wanted my character to feel like she was part of the Institute. You get these Institute quarters, and you don't even have. You've got that one little nook with a bed that you can sleep in, and you don't feel like you're part of the Institute. It doesn't even come with workstations. So I really wanted my character to be able to feel like she was part of the Institute. Anyway, this is where all the food is delivered, and if you install the AS Institute Workstations mod, you're going to get this food synthesization station. You get the food thing. You get this food thing here, and you can use it as any other cooking stove. And so this is where the food is made, and I figure, she's the director, so she'll probably just make an order when she needs new food packets to be sent up to the director's quarters. So why have a cooking station, right? So that's why I didn't put an oven, or I didn't put a stove, or I didn't even put one of the Institute workstations in there, just because I knew that she wasn't going to be doing any cooking in there. But she does have a place to eat. And then over here, like I said earlier, I didn't want this to feel like a Wastelander's home, but there are a few things that I set out there just because, through the course of playing the game, I am collecting things. And one of these is the magazine rack. The other is, of course, the bobblehead headstand over here. I need a place to put all of these, so you may want to remove these in your game if you don't need it. I don't know. But it's really the only Wastelander thing that I added. And then over here is going to be the workstation. So passing another wonderful art on the wall. Passing an art. We go through here, and I turned this into the workstation. The director's quarters came with all of these office cabinets, just hundreds of them. One of the things I did is during the construction of the director's quarters, I just took everything that was here, and instead of deleting it, I shoved it all in a corner just so that I knew what to work with. And just look how many office cabinets came with this. I didn't duplicate any of these. These are all the ones that came with the director's quarters. But anyway, back to the workstation. I decided to put a table over here, and I imagined this as being a bit of an ammunition crafting bench. You can't craft ammunition in the base vanilla game of Fallout 4, which is a bit of a bummer. It was one of my favorite things about Fallout New Vegas. You can use the Contraptions Workshop DLC to generate certain types of ammunition, but not a lot of energy ammunition, and certainly not mini nukes or anything like that. So this is not functional, but I imagined this to be the ammunition crafting station for my Institute director. She may be the Institute director, but she's also a bit of a field agent, so to speak. kind of like a courser. She goes out into the field all the time, and she has needs and demands that many of the other scientists in the Institute don't, like a bunch of different types of ammunition that might not be sold from the commissary. So she's got this crafting station over here. I found these wonderful ammo boxes in a supply closet downstairs, so I duplicated them and brought them back up here. They have the Institute look, but they're colored differently. Then I've got more storage over here. Here's where I'm storing legendary weapons, and here's where I'm storing just regular weapons. Another functioning light, and then here is one of the Institute workstations. This is a weapon station. In order to avoid this place looking and feeling like a wasteland, junk home, I had to install a mod that gave us these beautiful Institute-themed workstations, because there are no workstations in the Institute. Just none, which is really annoying. So I think this mod is pretty much essential. If you download and install this Director's Quarters into your game without that mod, these will just be missing, and you'll have to find another way to get them into your game. But this does work as a weapon station, and there's plenty of room so that when you activate the workshop, you're not going to see a lot of clipping in the background. There's plenty of room all around the character. Over here, I just have one armor rack. I've got some synth armor on there for now. And then here's another locker. Here's where I'm storing other armor. I guess this was legend. Oh, no, that's right. I've got all of my main armor over there, but anything that is not legendary, I store over here. Now, I wanted a place to store explosives and mines, but I needed a container that didn't feel like a Wastelander container. So I took one of these ammo boxes from the supply closet downstairs and used place everywhere to blow it up. So it's huge. I think it looks okay. It doesn't look too out of place, but it does look like a nice big Institute-themed trunk. And in here, I store all of my explosives. So there you go. That's my little workshop where my character will likely be spending most of her time. Moving beyond here, this is, of course, the door that leads back outside. That's the conference room right above us. And then over here, I've got a few little robots on display. I figured that these were okay to display because robots are a thing here at the Institute, making synths and previously androids, so I figure she's got her robot collection on display. Notice that I only used the white crystal or ceramic for the decorations, and that's because that's the only color that's used in the Institute. They have a lot of potted plants and flowers and vases all over the Institute, but they never use any of the colored or patterned ones. It's only white. So I made sure to use only white ceramics for that. And then I've just got, this came with the Director's Quarters, so I just left it there. This also came with the Director's Quarters, and I liked it, so I left it there. All I added was another nightstand over here with more ceramic. And then this is, this is the terminal, Father's terminal, which was originally over here. So I had to use place everywhere to move it. I didn't want to scrap it because it does have unique information on it relating to Father. And then downstairs is where he had us record our message, which is now playing on Diamond City Radio. I really liked that microphone, and so I used Place Everywhere to drag it back up here. So this is her office space. She's got her desk. Love the potted plant. Decided to keep that. And then in these cabinets, man, X6, you were just doing a great job of being in the way. Would you move, please? Get out of there. Come on. Just got some cabinets over here. Wow, buddy. Jeez. All right, anyway. And then this is where I'm storing all of my miscellaneous goods. I had so many of these cabinets, I didn't know what to do with them, so I stacked them on up over here. And in one, I'm just storing miscellaneous items. And then in here, I'm storing Brotherhood of Steel dog tags, of course. I've got 82 in my collection, and they go right in the trash. Just because this is the director of the Institute. She hates the Brotherhood of Steel. I wanted something interesting, so I kind of shrunk one of these down to be a super small and made one of these medium. I don't know, maybe legitimate artists will be able to say whether or not the feng shui of that works. And then down here is, of course, the bathroom. This came with the director's quarters. I just added some more stuff to it. In the bathroom, I didn't do much to this. I just added a few things. One of the things I added was, of course, a lighthouse, because you can't have a bathroom without the painting of a lighthouse. At least if Commonwealth rules are to be believed. So I've got a lighthouse over here, and I've got a lighthouse on the wall. These are the only exceptions I made with paintings in my director's quarters. Abstract art for everywhere else, but lighthouses for the bathrooms. And then in here, the one thing that was unique about the director's bathroom compared to all others is it didn't have a vent. All other bathrooms in the Institute had these vents, and I didn't want it to get muggy in here, so I went ahead and used Place Everywhere to copy one of the vents I found elsewhere and put it on the wall. And then I just decorated this up with OC Decorator, a few things like bobby pins and so forth. Put some soap and toothbrush on the sink, and then I added this little doodad in the corner just to give it some interesting sci-fi flair. Alright, so that is the top level of the director's quarters. Let's move on downstairs and I'll explain some of my unique choices here. First, we'll go behind the staircase, and this is going to be my chemistry lab. My director isn't a scientist, but she is good at science and makes a lot of chems. And so I used the Institute workstations to put this biochemistry station in here, and this is her chemistry station. So from here, she can make all of her chems, and I imagine that she supplies many people in the Institute with chems, like coursers, for example. And so here she is boxing up some of the chems that she's made. This box came with the settlement. It was loose, so you could kick it around. I used Placed Everywhere to lock it in place so that it didn't move, and I started putting some Radex in there. There's a first aid med kit on there, and then I've got a bunch of tools and stuff decorated up over here. More paintings and stuff on the wall. Here we've got another temperature control station, and then some other console. None of this was here. I had to add that by finding it in the Institute and dragging it all over. Every single person's home in the Institute has this. I don't know what this is. It's got an eject button on it, and then all of these big glass vials of some sort of liquid. What is this? What does it even do? Why is it in every single one of these quarters? Well, I didn't know, but I certainly didn't want to break with tradition, so I went and put one of these in the director's quarters as well, and I duplicated a lot of these little vials or jars, whatever they are, and stacked them up here to make them look nice. And also put that. This weird thing is also in every single home. Not sure what it is, but I put it there as well. And then this is the only room I did not know what to do with. I just had so much left over. Here's all the boxes in the director's quarters that were left over after Father left, and I didn't know what to do with them. I didn't want to scrap them, so I put them in the corner. And then these are all of the other office cabinets that were here already that I didn't know what to do with. I just stacked them over here. But I also noticed that every single home is filled with like a storage chamber. Look at these weird things. These, I think, are microfiche readers. Strange that we find them in every Fallout game. Well, at least in Fallout 3, New Vegas, and 4. They never have any function. We never can interact with them, but we find them in all 3 of those games. And we found a bunch here. Maybe this is what they used to do a lot of research about the time before the war. Maybe that's why we find so many microfiche readers here in the Institute. But I didn't want to delete them, so I left them here. This was the terminal that was downstairs over by where the microphone used to be. Didn't want to delete it, so I put it there. And then I already showed you my generator. These are some more of the unique chairs. I duplicated every single unique chair in the Institute and tried to use them everywhere. These are the only 2 I couldn't find a use for. This is a stool, so you would sit really high. And I don't have a bar in here, so I didn't use that. And this one is just super fancy. It's like a lounge chair. I didn't find a spot for it. All right, so heading out, here we go. This is my power armor work area. One thing that bothered me about the Institute, and I'm not sure why they did it, but no one uses power armor in the Institute. You've got all these coursers that you're sending out to the field. You'd think it would be expensive to create a courser. After all, they have an entire department dedicated to synth retention and going out and retrieving escaped synths. So you'd think they'd want to do everything they could to keep their coursers safe. But no one uses power armor, which is weird because in the original design concept of the game, they had planned for Institute-themed power armor. You can even find a mod by mod author M150 that recreated the concept art power armor for the Institute. So they had it planned, but they never implemented it in the game. So all they did is create this Institute paint scheme. This paint scheme for the XO1 is in the game. So I guess this is the kind of power armor that the Institute wants to use. So what I decided to do as director, one of the main things that my director is doing is equipping every courser with a suit of power armor, and I am providing them with my personal collection. So this is XO1 pieces that I have found all over the wasteland. It helps if you go searching for them after your really high level, which increases your chance that they're going to spawn. And these are suits that are already painted and ready to go. These are suits that are in production. Yeah, I have some Hellfire over here. You wouldn't have this unless you had the mod installed or the creation installed. But I figure if anyone's going to have found some Hellfire, it will be the Institute. So I've got their version in here. But this one's currently under production. And then this is the workstation. So I've got a mat down here, all sorts of canisters with fuel over here in the corner. Here's a big shelf for storing fusion cores. I've got fusion cores stacked up over here, so a courser can just grab one and go. My ultimate goal is to have an entire section dedicated to producing and repairing and equipping power armor. So as director, maybe we would create a new wing dedicated to the production of and repair of power armor, or maybe this would be fitted inside the SRB. But for now, the shop has to be here in the director's quarters. Container over here, this is where I'm storing all of my excess power armor. You can see I have a lot of pieces left over from my exploration. And then more doodads down here. Paint cans, of course, because we're painting up all these pieces, turning them white with the beautiful Institute paint. And there we go. So that's what I've got that designed for. These lights do work. I've got lights up there so that at night, well, I guess it's never night in the Institute, but if it were darker, these would be lit up really well. Over here, I've got spare pieces of X01, just kind of stacked on up over here, and then components. These are a lot of the components used to repair X01 power armor, including cork, ceramic, lead, rubber, and all sorts of goodies. Now, I like that chandelier. Did I show that off? I don't think I did. I basically took a floor lamp and I turned it upside down and used it as a chandelier in this big vaulted area. Okay, so the last room. Didn't know what to do with this. It's a big room and it's weird. We've got this cage. And after completing the primary quest in the game, the occupant of this cage is now in a completely different place. For some reason, that occupant is no longer here, which is weird because you'd think that occupant would want to be with the director, but that's not what happened. And instead, we've got this big empty cage. So using console commands to unlock this sliding door, which is inaccessible, I was able to get in here, but we've got the bed, and I just didn't know what to do with it. So I guess I'm imagining that the previous occupant, after his or her studies in robotics or hanging out with the other Institute scientists, would come back up here to sleep. Because as we all know, one of Father's final requests, if we read his holotape, is that this former occupant was cared for as if he was part of the director's family. So I imagine that my sole survivor is wanting to honor that wish, and so at night after studies, the fellow comes on up here and stays there. I recognize most of you already know. I'm trying to avoid spoilers, okay? Every time I do a video like this, someone complains about having it spoiled, and so I'm doing my best to avoid spoilers. But over here, I didn't really know what to do because it's weird to have this big glass wall. I mean, the poor kid doesn't have any privacy. And, it's weird. It's just a weird thing. So I didn't really know what to do with that, so I kind of just left that alone. And over here I've got a seating area. So I put a coffee table down there and then some seats on either side. Maybe this is where the director has informal interviews or talking about raises with some of the staff, giving performance reviews. And then art on the walls. I really like this, tipped on its side. It reminds me of missiles falling back to Earth, or maybe a spaceship from space falling back to Earth right in front of the sun. Looks really nice. And then I left this alone. I put a camera up there and a robot there, and that's all I did. Oh, and I put that there. Many of the other doors have little buttons like these on the outside, but this one didn't, so I put my own. And there you go. That is my director's quarters. So thankfully, C. Dante has released a mod called Transfer Settlements that allows you to export your settlement as a blueprint and import it into another game. Well, he recently released an update to Transfer Settlements. Yeah, there he goes. Yeah, see, he's going to walk on in here and start fiddling with the wall, and I really like that, so I didn't want to cover it up. I want to let him do his thing. Looking good, Gen 1 Synth. Looking good. Anyway, so his new version of transfer settlements supports blueprints from places that are not traditional settlement locations in the game, such as something that's opened up like this. So I was able to export a blueprint of the concourse here, and you can now import it into your game. So I provide a link to my mod in the description below. All it requires is transfer settlements. If you want to make any changes, then you are going to have to install the AS Institute Workstations mod so that you can make any changes to it you want, and I also list those in the description. But yeah, see Dante's transfer settlements is all you need to get this in your own game. I've tested it, it all works perfectly. It gets zapped in so that you can make use of it, even the stuff that I had to duplicate using Place Everywhere that I didn't use the workshop to build. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that. I had a lot of fun putting it together. It's something I've been meaning to do for a long time. I put so much time and attention into my Minuteman settlements that I often ignore, well, I have been ignoring my player home here. So I finally got it done. I'm really glad with how it turned out, and I'm happy to share it with you today. As I said earlier, I didn't use any other mods except for the ones I've already talked about, so it should be perfectly compatible with your own game. Thank you so much for watching. If you want the settlement for your game, you can find a link to it in the description below. If you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon or a subscriber here on YouTube. I publish many videos every single week, so if you want to make sure that you don't miss my next video, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon with a brand new video.